Got to get himself involved.
Layup, bank shot's good. Tyrese Halliburton makes it a 4-point game. Nembhard pushing it up the floor, double team. Knocked away, gets it back. Toppin wanted to shoot, Caruso wouldn't let him. Nesmith drills it, rattles it home. Nesmith with his third three-pointer. Every time OKC gets a little breathing room, the Pacers have an answer. Nembhard steps back, three-pointer. Got it! Three-pointer from Nembhard. It's a three-point game with 1:59 remaining. He's hit some big threes in his brief playoff career. Some anxiety here for the fans in Oklahoma City. The Thunder clinging to this three-point lead. SGA the drive inside, shot blocked. Siakam throws it back. Nembhard to Nesmith, up top, Toppin. Under a minute remaining. Nembhard and Wallace. Step back, three-pointer. Short, rebound, the follow. Siakam puts it in. SGA has it. There's about a 9-second difference, shot clock and game clock. Gilgeous-Alexander spins, pulls up, jumper. Off the mark, won't go. Rebound, Nesmith. The Pacers with a chance to win it. Final seconds, no fouls to give. Halliburton looking. Halliburton driving, pulls up, jump shot. It's good! It's good! With 0.3 of a second remaining. Timeout, OKC. Tyrese Halliburton does it again. Their first lead of the game. This crowd absolutely stunned as the Pacers take a 1-point lead. Caruso looking, throws it up on the rim, knocked away, and Indiana takes game one. Shocking the Thunder here at OKC. The comeback kids do it again.
Hello and welcome back to the Pacers Fever Show. They've done it again. I'm your host, Logan, and today we are breaking down an absolutely wild Game 1 of the NBA Finals that will go down in Pacers history. The Indiana Pacers have gone in and stolen one on the road in Oklahoma City, and when I say stolen, I mean stole one. The Blue and Gold only led once in this game, and that was with 0.3 seconds left on the clock. It was a heart stopper, a game where OKC was in control all night, but the Pacers refused to die once again, and we're going to talk about how this team found a way, the late game heroics, the turning point moments, and what this kind of win means for the Indiana Pacers as they take a 1-0 lead in the NBA Finals. Let's get into it. And here we are again. It's become habit for this team to start out game one with one of these miraculous comebacks that defies all odds, where the probabilities are the lowest that they've probably have ever been in NBA games. We're going to talk about some probabilities here in just a second, because I'm just going to go down the timeline. I'm going to go to X and read through all the favorited tweets and different things that I had found as I'm trying to do some of the notes and look at some of the thumbnails and try to get my head wrapped around this. Again, I was starting to make the graphics for another Pacers loss, because if you know anything about podcasting, you want to just get it done with, especially after a loss, and you're trying to create the graphics and kind of wrap your head around what went wrong, what you're going to talk about, talking points, the rundown, whatever it might be. You're getting everything ready, having to make the thumbnail and insert different, Thunder 1-0 series lead. And once again, as I'm doing this, I'm like, they're going to do it again. It feels the same way every single time. Like, you start to get this moment of doubt. There's this slight moment in their run where it's like, oh, yep, that was it. That's where it went to die. That's where the game went to end. And although they're magical on these runs, you still get those moments of you feel confident in them as they start to get over those moments where, like for instance, tonight, Miles Turner misses a big three. I think they were down 6 at that point, or 3. He misses the 3, I think it was 4 points that they were up. OKC. Turner misses a big 3, and I'm like, you know what? That's it. They go down. They get a bucket. They go back up by 6. It's around the 6 to 7 point lead in that 5 minute left, 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left, and it's going back and forth. But they're staying right there in that range. But I just felt like with OKC's defense, you were running out of time because we've talked about doing this against the Cavs, who are really beat up. Good defensive team, not as great as OKC, and boy, are they great. We'll talk about how good they are, and that's why I still think you win game one. But this series is going to be, I think, a very long one and an incredible one. But in game one, once again, you get a little bit of doubt, and then this team just does things that defy odds, defy logic. And as somebody that's watched basketball for, 27, 28 years, however I can remember, I'm 32 years old. So back to when I'm 6 or 7, when I'm starting to remember games for the first time, there's never been a team that has been more magical than this Pacers team. And everybody across the board has talked about it. You know, 3 quarters of this game almost just talked about just how great and historic this Thunder defense was in the first half. And the Pacers were just completely knocked out in the first half by this defense. And it really did. It looked pretty grim. I mean, after the first half and then the third quarter, it starts a little bit slower, but OKC's kind of keeping that 10 to 12 point margin. And with their defense, that feels like 25. But OKC was struggling offensively. And this is something we'll talk about too, and something that we previewed a little bit in the series preview. But again, when Eastern Conference is going against Western Conference, I heard a lot of people talking about this. Caitlin Cooper was definitely one of them that talked about it, where it's so hard to predict Eastern versus Western just because they don't see each other very often. And style of play is very different among the conferences. So it's the game one of an NBA finals is a feel out process. You're trying to understand what the team you're playing against is going to do to you to try to limit the opportunities. And that's what the first quarter felt like, but it still felt like a huge advantage OKC because of the way they played defense. And it still is a huge advantage the way that they can buckle down on an offense. But again, this game just felt OKC all the way up until the fourth quarter, really. And if you go back and look at the second half stats, the Pacers were really good in the second half. And it sure didn't feel like that just because it felt like OKC, when Indiana would throw the punch, they would at least throw it back at you to even it out. And they still had that 10-point advantage that they took in to halftime or from halftime. And it did. It just felt like OKC was ready to answer the bell every single time that Indiana was there to ring it. And again, I didn't feel good about it. It felt like we were heading down 1-0 once again. And I, start to make all these graphics and type up all these notes. And they were talking about it on ESPN. Scott Van Pelt, same thing. He said he had like 14 note cards, and then Legler's like 14. I had like 40 on what everything OKC did defensively to stymie the Pacers. And he said, I only had one note card on Indiana on what they could do to try to at least even the playing field a little bit. And everything flipped on its head once again. And we've been in this situation so many times now, and people will always go, well, they've got to feel really confident. Your fans have got to feel really confident in games like this. And I'm like, to an extent, yes, but like it eventually has to stop, right? I mean, that's always in the back of your mind as a fan of this team that's just gone on this magical run, this team of destiny, as they've been labeled. It's got to come to an end, right? Like that's the way that fandom has always worked, especially with the Pacers. Like no matter how magical it has gotten, it has come to an end at some point. And tonight it felt like this is a team that's going to be able to stop the Pacers from scoring down the stretch. And yes, they haven't played very many clutch moments, but I mean, there was a point where OKC led by 15. Like they extended to their longest lead in the second half. And it just felt like the Pacers were completely bamboozled by this defense, even though, and you don't really know what it's like until you're experiencing it. And I think same thing can go and apply to the Thunder, where you can't really experience this helter skelter, hair on fire charge that Indiana tends to put on teams in the last 3 minutes of games. It's a 48-minute team, and I love that Richard Jefferson was pointing that out throughout the game, along with Breen, is that this is an Indiana team that will play you for 48 minutes. And that's not just a cliche. They literally mean until the ball is off the floor and the refs are walking out and the game is over, the buzzer has sound. This Pacers team does not believe in giving up. And it sets up for high pressure moments when they get back into these games because the intensity of the NBA playoffs, and then you add in the NBA finals with a young team like Oklahoma City, and the Pacers are just about a year and a half older as far as average age, if you're talking about their roster. But it felt like the bigger brother showed up the end of the game after not playing a good game and was like, you know what? You've let us hang around. You're letting us back into it. You shouldn't do that. You've seen what these other, it's the kids that they had knocked out of the rounds before are sitting over there on the bench on the sideline, like, watch out, they're coming for you. And again, there's nothing that the younger brother could do, and older brother shows up and takes care of business after a really horrible performance in that first half. So again, it's past 12:30, so my mind is just, after all of this, I'm going to try to put this as much into coherency as I can. But I do apologize if I get it off topic, but it's so hard to do podcast after these kind of games because your mind is just so fixated on the comeback and the final shot where Tyrese Halliburton hits another game winner to send his team up 1-0 on the road against a very, very good Oklahoma City team, this time in the NBA Finals. So let's get into it. Let's go into the rundown. Again, I'm over on YouTube, the Pacers Fever Show. So if you want to see video version, rundown is basically the talking points that I'm going to go through throughout the episode. So if you want to get over there and look at what we're going to be talking about for the show, but I'll read those off as we go through the list and go through the rundown for those that are listening on the audio side, which we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find podcasts. But again, you can subscribe as well over on YouTube and comment, like, share. Always looking for somebody to join me on these shows. If you want to come on as a guest during this finals run, whatever it ends up being, or as a host, I'm looking for a co-host. So do Pacers and Fever. And tonight, I am very happy to do an episode this late. So let's talk about this game because it was a tale of Oklahoma City for a majority of this game, all the way up until the end, when the Pacers pull off the unimaginable once again. So in the rundown, it says they did it again. We've gone through that point. I continue to be amazed by what this team can do and the fight that they have, the just intensity they play with late in the game, where it was lacking for a good portion of this one. And all of a sudden, the momentum starts to shift, and the Pacers become this, I believe that we can do anything we want to do, and nobody's going to stop us. I mean, it feels like an avalanche. It's got to feel that way. And it was really interesting because SGA was interviewed after the game, and they asked him about what happened there in the final 3 minutes. And he said, it happened so fast that it was hard to understand. And he said, I got to go back and watch the film, but it's hard to understand how it happened so fast. And every single time that this has happened, it's the same kind of, like, the player is clearly in shock and they're being interviewed. And because it does happen so quick, I mean, the Pacers are having to score so quickly that it has to feel like getting punched in the head, and you don't have any chance to kind of defend yourself. So you're just taking punches from every which direction, and you don't know where it's coming from, and you're just wanting it to stop. And when it stops and you finally realize what has happened, you realize you have been delivered the knockout blow. That's what it feels like. You get all these players that are just And this is a demoralizing lot. We saw what this can do to a team. We saw what it did to Cleveland. We saw what it did to the New York Knicks. Is it going to be the same thing with Oklahoma City? And Oklahoma City is a much better team than New York Knicks. They are a great team. They should be still favorites to win this series, honestly. They're still going to be favorites because all they got to do is win game 2 and they're back on level playing field, and the Pacers have to win at home then. They can't drop games at home, but this Thunder team can beat anybody. So they have proven that they belong here as well. The series is a long series, 3 more wins, but those 3 wins are going to be a huge challenge because the Thunder are going to come out with a punch the Pacers have probably not ever seen before in game 2 because they know that they are in a dire situation if they go down 0-2 because again, a team that's dropped their first 2 home games in a best of 7 series has never gone on to win that series. So they know what's at stake. It's a great win for Indiana, but they honestly didn't deserve this one. And we'll talk about why I think that was. I really do think that this one, more so than the Cleveland and the New York Knick one, I actually believe this was the least deserved. This was the one that the Pacers absolutely deserved to lose this game. And the fact that they didn't, you got to take some really good things out of the fact that you were able to win a game when you played one of your worst games that you played all postseason, especially in that first half. So let's get into it. What happened in game 1? And we're going to start at the beginning. Cason Wallace inserted for Isaiah Hartenstein. Hartenstein had been a starter throughout the postseason for the Thunder, and this was a topic of discussion throughout the previews, throughout the playoffs. If the Thunder got to a point, could they afford to play a double big lineup? I mean, double big lineups are going to be extinct, I think, at some point soon in the NBA because of the speed and the precision on offense, the ability to shoot. I think you're going to have your 4 and 5. They're going to have to hit 3-pointers. I mean, I think it's getting to that point already if it hasn't gotten there at this point. And so we talked about that being an advantage for the Pacers. We said that if they're going to run that double big lineup out there, it's probably going to struggle against Indiana because Indiana has done well against double big lineups. And with their pace, it can be hard to keep up with them defensively. And that can cause a mismatch issue. That can cause defensive units trouble because you're allowing people to get into the paint off of pick and rolls and off screen, off ball picks and actions. So right away, Mark Dagnall, which my dad called me before the game and he was like, they just had I think it was a French professor or speech there, something. And he said that they had them on and that we're saying Mathurin wrong and Dagnall. It's Maturin because the H is silent in the French language. So it would be Maturin. And then it would be Dagnall, not Dagnall. So I'm gonna I'm gonna continue to call him Mathurin because he's not corrected anybody yet, and Dagnall, same thing. So I'll continue to call him that, but that is funny. My dad called me and goes, "You want to get some extra? You want to be extra wise on the podcast if you want to say their names correctly." And it's fascinating, and I'm interested to see if Ben or Mark will comment on it because I want to hear if they pronounce their names like that because I go with however they pronounce their names. And I'm not sure I've ever heard Ben say his last name. So we'll see. But I will continue to call them by the names everybody else calls them until those two tell me otherwise. But yeah, so they insert Cason Wallace. And Cason Wallace, good defender, pretty good offensive player from what he did to Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton was really exposed defensively, I thought, in this game. And Cason Wallace was pretty much the one exposing him the whole game. But they went small, and right away you could tell it was not going well for Cason Wallace because he was having to guard Pascal Siakam. There's a tremendous size difference there. There is experience difference there, and Cason Wallace is not used to guarding people like that in the post. I mean, you're guarding an all-star power forward who was the Eastern Conference MVP, who was an NBA champion at one point, a 20-plus point scorer for most of the season. So it was a difficult assignment, and the fact that that was dropped, and again, these players know the starting lineup well before we hear about it, so they knew this coming in. But the fact that they inserted this new piece to the puzzle, and they've done this before with Kaysen, but the before game one even tips off, like, you didn't even give it a chance, the double big lineup, and you just went for it because, I mean, you're playing chess, not checkers, I guess. I that's the only reason I can think of it, was to try to throw Indiana off, and Indiana took it pretty well. I mean, it was 10-10 at one point in the first quarter before it started to get out of hand, before the Thunder really started to impose their will defensively. Like, the Pacers go down 7-0. There was a 7-0 run to start the game. Then Miles Turner gets a foul. He makes one free throw. They eventually get it back 10-10. They go on a 7-3 run on their own. Or sorry, 9-1. Or no, 9-3 run Indiana goes on after a really tough start. And I was like, okay, they took Oklahoma City's first punch really well and looked pretty decent offensively. I mean, obviously you could tell there was a pressure that was being applied by the Thunder. And then the turnovers that were happening at the beginning of the first quarter and into the first quarter, they were dead ball turnovers. And while those are not great, you live with those. Like, live ball turnovers are what Oklahoma City really wants. They feast on those. But they didn't really get a lot of those. I think the first 3 or 4 turnovers were all dead ball, and one of them might have been a live ball turnover, but it didn't end up in points, and we'll talk about how bad Indiana was turning the ball over, but also how poor Oklahoma City was at executing off of those turnovers. So, again, Indiana, first quarter, it it didn't go well after the 10-10 tie. It was 10-10, they call a timeout, and then all of a sudden they came out, and I have never in my entire life watching basketball, playing basketball, and obviously I know they're professionals. I didn't play professional basketball, obviously, but I have never seen a cohesive unit that intense for that stretch of time, with their hands all over you, and the intensity and the space they don't give you, and just the hustle and the rotations. It had me confused. It had everybody else that probably doesn't watch OKC like, what in the world? Like, that's how good they are defensively. The Pacers don't stand a chance. It felt that way. I mean, it really did. It felt like getting back into the game was going to be impossible if we got down by 10. And sure enough, we do in the first quarter. But I mean, it was just awful in the first quarter. Turnovers, 9 turnovers in the first quarter, that I think tied the most by the Indiana Pacers throughout this postseason in a half. I think that's what they said. Like, that's not good when you're tying your turnover total for the half of any half in the postseason in game one, quarter one of the NBA Finals. You got 9 turnovers. So, yes, 9 turnovers. They shot 17 shots, the Pacers did, compared to Oklahoma City's 27. Now, here's what you can do with most of these quarters. You can go through, and especially the first and second quarters, you'll see a ton of turnovers by Indiana. You'll see way more shot opportunities from OKC. I mean, glaringly. And you'll also notice, so, like, for instance, in this first quarter, OKC went 11 of 27. They were 40% from the field, 50% from 3, 80% from the foul line. They had 4 free throws made out of 5 attempted. They scored 29 points. Their hands were active. They had 4 steals. But again, like I said, there were a lot of dead ball turnovers in that first quarter compared to later on in the first and into the second quarter, that's when they start to become even more dangerous because there were more live ball turnovers in the second quarter. And Indiana up their up their turnover total to 10 in the second quarter. So in the first half, Indiana ends with 19 turnovers. They were shooting 15 of 35 from the field. That's 42.9%. They were shooting really well from three, 42.1%, and were 7 to 10 from the foul line. Rebounds, 28 rebounds, only had 4 offensive rebounds. If you look at Oklahoma City in the first half, OKC 6 offensive rebounds, 16 defensive, 22 rebounds in total. So Indiana actually had a better rebounding total and didn't get crushed too bad on the offensive glass, but it did feel like that. It felt like OKC was getting every offensive rebound. And I think the reason it felt like that is because of all the steals, the turnovers, the dead ball turnovers, live ball turnovers. It felt like OKC had the ball we were pretty much playing that possession game that the NFL plays where it felt like 80% possession was in OKC's half of the floor. And Indiana just felt like they were 15 of 35 at half. OKC was 20 of 54. They had 19 more field goal attempts in the first half than the Pacers did. The bad thing was they shot 37% from the field in the first half, 38.9% from three. They did shoot 11 free throws, only one more than the Pacers, and hit 90%. They were 10 of 11. But I mean, you look at that, they had 12 steals in the first half. That's insane. I think it has to be a record in an NBA final game for a half. It felt like anytime that the Pacers had it in the paint anywhere, OKC was just stealing it from them. Like there was times where Turner would bring it down and Caruso would just have the ball all of a sudden. Case and Wallace would have the ball. Dort would steal it. Shea Gilgeous, he was really good. SGA was fantastic tonight defensively. I mean, he knocked balls off of Tyrese. Tyrese couldn't get involved really in the offense. They couldn't get it into the paint. We were shooting most of our shots late into the shot clock. It was the recipe for killing the Pacers. I mean, they should have been up by 20 something, OKC. But the Pacers were able to keep pace with OKC and were only down. So the score at halftime was 57 to 45. 12-point lead. And I started to tweet that it really didn't feel like we were out of it. I mean, it really didn't, because if you play that poorly and you're only down 12, you turn the ball over 19 times in a half, you set a record in NBA history for the most turnovers in a half in an NBA Finals game. And you start to look at just the fact that you're in the game, you got to feel good about, because you're 12 points behind and you couldn't have played worse. You really couldn't have. And again, like many people have said now, and they're starting to catch on in the national media, but all we've been saying is that no matter how poorly this Pacer team is playing, no matter how bad they're shooting it, no matter who's leading them in scoring at halftime, if TJ McConnell, which he was leading the Pacers at halftime in scoring, no matter if that's happening, right? The Pacers just have this ability to stay around in games and sneak in on you when you're least expecting it and make it a game again. And that's what happened. I mean, OKC, all the way down to like the 3-minute mark in the fourth quarter, had to have felt like, all right, all we got to do is close this out, play average basketball, and we're walking out of here with a 1-0 win and feeling really good about Sunday, because the Pacers just haven't been able to handle anything that we've thrown at them defensively. But I think the second half tells a different story, and we'll talk about what I mean by that. But the offense started to get clicking for Indiana, and I think they've started to figure out ways in which they can start to go after Oklahoma City. And there was things that I started to notice as the game progressed that they weren't doing as much with Indiana as they were in the first half, and you did kind of see that intensity wear down. And then, to be honest with you, it is something I talked about that I didn't feel like was getting talked about enough. And people would mention it, but then they're like, "Well, they went on to beat the Nuggets in Game 7. They crushed the Timberwolves, who were in the Western Conference Finals last year, and like annihilated them. So they were battle tested." But those teams really didn't put OKC in the crunch unless it was Denver, and when Denver did, OKC had a hard time. You do still wonder because they are still a very young team, one of the youngest teams in the NBA. When clutch time comes, what does that team look like? And tonight, on this night, game 1 of the NBA Finals, the Pacers looked awestruck in the first half. The Thunder looked completely shell shocked in the last 3 minutes of that game, and that let the Pacers back into it. So, I think there's still a lot that goes into how much the Pacers have been through in a postseason this year and last year. I think they've been in a lot more interesting games. And while people will argue the Cavs are not as good as OKC and the Knicks are not as good as OKC, the Bucks aren't as good as OKC, the Pacers had to play close games with those teams at points. And the Pacers had an opportunity to feel a little bit of pressure in some of those games, especially in the Knicks series. And every single time they answered it and fought back and made huge plays and hit huge shots. It just, that momentum, that experience of how you win games and how you close out games is so important. And I thought tonight, OKC, it looked like a team that hadn't had to close out games in a very long time. So again, this is going to be a very difficult series to win still. I know we're up 1-0, but again, they come back Sunday, they smack you in the mouth, and then it's 1-1, and all they have to do is win another game in Cambridge, and then it becomes home court advantage again for them. So we have a long way to go, and I don't want to basically go, well, we won game 1, that means we're going to win it all. No, I don't think it's that way. I think that this is at least still a 6-game, 7-game series at this point. But tonight, the Pacers' experience did seem to be the difference between them and an OKC team that is a very good team that has had some battle test, but not to the level in which Indiana has over the last couple of years. So kudos to Indiana to be able to close this one out again. But that first half, like I said, those stats just speak for themselves. They were awful in the first quarter and in the second quarter. It just, that first half was one of the worst performances I've ever seen an offense have, just because of how stifling their defense is. And can I just say, Oklahoma City, it is very impressive. I tweeted this. It is so hard to get guys to buy in to play that level of defense for 48 minutes. And the fact that they do it every single night is very impressive. And you do it with 10 guys at least. So kudos to Mark Dagnall and that whole entire front office with Sam Presti, because it is so hard to find 10 guys that are that committed on the defensive end, because the NBA and basketball in general is all about scoring. And this is a team that, to its detriment, I think at times, uh, focused a lot on getting defensive players, and they're going to win games on the defensive end, which it can be a risk. And you did see some of that tonight, because as the game progressed, you had to have really good games from your big three, and Chet Holmgren was not good tonight. So I think OKC they built this to be the defensive juggernaut, and you can win championships like this, but you have to have experienced scorers that can take you the distance in games like this, where you can't just lean on Shea. And I know Shea is the MVP, and there are games that he can probably win in the series that he just puts them on his back. But again, relatively younger players, still not in his prime, which is scary to say. SGA is entering his prime and doing this, but he still is inexperienced in some of these big game situations, and all the other players as well. I thought Chet looked overmatched tonight. Anytime he got near Miles Turner, I thought Miles, while shaky on the offensive end, he did some things tonight that just kept Chet quiet. And I think that's something that will not go as recognized because of how bad they were in the first half. But if you go back and look at all the Miles Turner, uh, Chet Holmgren matchups and Chet trying to get to the rim, Miles just didn't let him get anywhere near it. So I thought Miles was really good defensively tonight, and he was a big reason why late in the game they were in it. Obviously, he struggled offensively, but again, Miles is not a star player. He is a very good role player, and role players tend to struggle on the road shooting the basketball. But we got some good performances tonight from other role players, and we'll talk about those. We'll go through each of the players individually and kind of give not really a grade. I don't like grading people, but we'll talk about how good their performances were tonight or what they need to work on. But yeah, that first half, complete domination by the Thunder, that shot differential, the turnover problem. But the Pacers came out in the second half and I thought were a lot better. I thought the offense looked a lot more stable. They were still getting some late shots in the shot clock, but I felt the Pacers had an idea of how to attack it. They knew Andrew Nembhard had to be more efficient on the offensive end. They had to get Pascal Siakam the basketball. Miles Turner hit some really good shots in the paint, and I thought he took advantage of some of the weaker defenders when they would have the smaller lineups out there with Case and Wallace, and when Dort would sometimes end up down there with him, Caruso at times. I thought the Pacers really caused problems for their front court with Siakam and Turner, and neither of them have a good shooting night, and they'll be better. So I think that's something too you can take away where Pascal and Miles weren't necessarily that efficient tonight shooting the basketball, but they still got into the paint, scored some good points. Miles had 10 points in the second half. Pascal 11 points. I felt like the front court, Obi Toppin, you can throw in there too because he had 11 points in the second half. He was massive. Obi Toppin looked like the most scared player in the first half. There were times like he threw one ball completely backcourt and Tyrese was nowhere near it. And Tyrese was frustrated and Obi just, it panned to him and he just had this really scared look on his face, like, what is happening out here? Then for some reason, the second half, he buckled down and he went 4 or 5 from the field. He hit 3 3-pointers. He ended up with 5 3-pointers tonight, 11 points in that second half. And Obi Toppin was huge in this game. So he ends with 17 points off the bench. And that's the kind of performance you need from a role player. You need one of those big games from your role player. And Obi Toppin was the one that provided that tonight. TJ provided all of that energy in the first quarter, and I thought kept the game close-ish. And TJ, after that first half, didn't score another point. But I felt the things that he was doing to get into the paint was causing Oklahoma City problems on the defensive end. So I thought TJ was instrumental in doing the things that you really don't notice in the box score. But he really was giving Oklahoma City's defense some pressure as he was kind of running through the baseline and those corner threes are going to be where the Pacers can kill Oklahoma City because the Pacers are a really good corner 3-point shooting team. And OKC, for some reason, their defensive scheme, it just is so wide open. Like it's the one area they just do not defend well. And it's because they blitz so high up on you as you're trying to get the ball up the floor. And they try to get those post players and get to those pick and rolls that they, I think, overcommit at times, and it leaves you wide open in the corner because of the way that they're trying to play defense and front all of the guards. So that is an area of attack that we can talk about as we get further into the series and into the episode. I'm going to try to record a preview show for game 2. It probably won't be too long, but we'll record another preview show that'll be separate from this one. So this will just be the game 1 recap for those that are interested in listening to it. So yeah, catch the next episode. It will be a preview, but talking about the second half, I mean, that's when you start to get into talking about some of these individual performances. So Aaron Nesmith, I thought, was really struggling tonight from the field. He was 3 of 9. He shot 33% from the field. He did hit 3 3-pointers. Those were the 3 field goals that he made. So he shot 42.9% from 3. And he hit a huge 3 down the stretch that I think brought them back within 6. And he was vital once again. to the Pacers having any chance here at the end of the game. But he had 12 rebounds. He rebounded the basketball very well. And to be honest with you, I thought the Pacers players defensively, I mean, they have good numbers on the defensive boards, but you look at the rebounding, and Oklahoma City felt like they dominated the offensive glass because of all the shots they were getting in the first half. But when you look at the totals, the Thunder had 10 offensive rebounds, the Pacers had 13. So they were much better, I think, in the second half on the offensive glass. The Pacers were actually the ones that were winning those 50-50 balls, which was huge. I mean, possessions and those 50-50 balls in the second half ended up being a big difference, I think, in the Pacers being able to come back and win this game. And a lot of it has to do with Aaron Nesmith. I felt like he was in the areas where those 50-50 balls were very often, and he's always going to give up his body to get those basketballs. So kudos to Aaron on that side of it. And I thought that he defended Jalen Williams really well tonight. I thought J-Dub struggled at times when Aaron was near him, and he just makes it so difficult on a second option because he's typically the one that will guard a first option too. But Andrew Nemhard's just been an absolute dog, and we'll talk about how good he was defensively, I thought, tonight, and offensively down the stretch too. But I mean, you look at Aaron Nesmith tonight, really good night, plus 13, 10 points. He had 5 turnovers. He did turn the ball over quite a bit, and his was more of like dribbling into this team. You can't dribble into this team like and expect good things to happen. I think you got to get a lot of ball movement. Trying ISO against this team, they're just so good at rotations and flashing over and cutting guys off and those trenches are just so small and tight. It's so hard to get passes in or try to like into the post. They cause a lot of problems. I mean, OKC is that's why I still think they can win this series definitely. But it's good to know that the Pacers in the second half figured something out. Like they've started to figure out things that they could do to exploit OKC's defensive weaknesses, which I didn't really think they had any after that first half, but you did. You saw, I think, multiple things tonight. We'll get to that at the end of the show. What I think changed in the second half, but let's get into Pascal Siakam. 19 points. He was a -10 tonight. I thought that he really struggled in minutes out there. That he was, and a lot of times he's out there with the bench, and the bench did have a good stretch there where just couldn't get anything going. And when Matherin's not really providing anything offensively, it can be tough. And he only had 5 points tonight. I thought he struggled some from the field. He played some good defense on Shea at times, and he did some good things. But at the end of it, I just felt like Mathurin could have been better. And when he's not providing the scoring, and Toppin's really the only one scoring in that second half, it was tough, I think, for Pascal to he had to carry the burden, and at times that wears him down. So he's not as effective. And when Pascal's out there by himself, I mean, they put all their focus on stopping him. And I felt like they did that tonight when Pascal was out there with that bench unit, because he ends up being the one starter that they'll leave out there with the bench unit. Miles Turner, 15 points tonight. He was a +8. He had 6 turnovers. He was really bad early in the game. I mean, he looked shell-shocked too. He did have 3 blocks. I thought he protected the rim really well. And the way that they play and the way that Chet was Chet can hit 3-pointers, but he's not really reliant upon his perimeter game. He likes to take off on the dribble. And when he brings Miles Turner to the rim, like, that is such a disadvantage for the Thunder, and especially Chet, because Miles, he really did. Like, he made Chet look really bad around the rim tonight. So we can keep our hopes up that Miles continues to do that. But Miles had 9 rebounds tonight. He doesn't do that very often, and I thought that was good. He was 5 of 10 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3. Again, I thought the second half Miles was good in getting them back into the game as well. The next person up was, I think, best player of the game, he or Obi, but Andrew Nemhard. He was only 4 of 11 from the field. He was 36%. He hit a huge 3-pointer late in this game. And 2 big 3-pointers in the game total, but he hit one where he stepped back on SGA to pull them back within 3 after OKC had gone back up to 6. He put an absolute dagger into, uh, the hopes of OKC late in this game, and I really did. I thought Andrew Nemhard, the way he defended Shea on that last possession and all night, I thought defended Shea Gilgeous really well, even though Shea had a very good night scoring. I didn't think it was very efficient the way that he was scoring, and that's what you ask of Andrew. You ask Drew to you're not going to stop SGA from scoring, and he's going to get over 30 points every game in the series. But you ask him to do what basically Neesmith did to Brunson, what they did to Giannis, where he can get his, but we're going to try our best to limit his people around him. And there were multiple times tonight, though, where I felt like SGA really needed a basket and Drew was there. And it was a difficult basket to get, or he didn't get the basket. And late in the game, makes the big stop down the stretch. SGA misses it to give Tyrese the chance to hit the game winner. But Drew was unbelievable. Hit some crucial free throws late again to get them back in the game. He had 6 assists, only 2 turnovers tonight, which was great. As the secondary ball handler, we asked him to do that in the preview of this series, and 2 turnovers is phenomenal on 6 assists. That is so good from Drew. He was a plus 11. He had 14 points and was the big difference down the stretch. Tyrese, again, you ask him to come up with big plays at the end of games, and he delivered again, hitting the biggest shot I think ever in Pacers history. I think we can all agree on that right now. I mean, no shot has ever been hit like that in the NBA Finals for this Pacer team. So I would put him number 1 on the biggest postseason shot ever hit, which is wild to think we just watched that there's never been a Pacers player that hit a game winner in the NBA Finals, but he did. And he wasn't very good tonight. Like, he was pretty limited by Dort. I mean, Dort's such a good defender. But there were some things that Ty did tonight that I just feel like people just don't understand and appreciate. One thing I can speak to is he rebounded the basketball. He had 10 rebounds tonight. He had 6 assists. He had 1 block. He had 3 turnovers, so he didn't turn it over too much. And while he was only 6 of 13, which is 46%, and only 2 of 7 from 3, hit the biggest shot, like I said, in Pacer history. So kudos to Tyrese for, not really having a good night shooting it, and was like, you know what? I'm once again going to shoot this basketball at the end of the game, and I'm going to end it. And he did it. And it's become a point where it's like, he doesn't miss those shots. Don't give him that opportunity. And it was really well defended, I thought. I mean, they gave him a little bit more space, and they didn't. I thought they'd have double teamed him, but he gets a good shot off over Case and Wallace, and it was a great jump shot and just drilled it. And again, ice in his veins. Obi Toppin, like I said, 6 of 9 from the field, 5 of 8 from the 3-point line, 62% from from 3-point land, 5 rebounds, and he only had 3 turnovers, as he was the one that I thought was going to have about 20 turnovers at the end of the first half. TJ McConnell, 4 of 6, 1 of 1 from the 3-point line. Again, he's hitting those threes now where they leave him and he's like, fine, if you're going to leave me like that, I'm just going to shoot it and make it. So he's usually good for 1 of those now per game. I seem to feel like that's going to be a theme. But yeah, Toppin had 17, McConnell 9 off the bench, Shepherd had a big 3, Mathurin had 5 points, and Thomas Bryant hit another big 3, another really big 3, and scored 5 points. So overall, not a great offensive night from the Pacers, even though they did shoot 46% from the 3-point line, which is crazy. I mean, they don't take a ton of threes. OKC shot 3 more threes than them. No, I was looking at the wrong stat. Sorry. The Pacers shot 39 3-pointers tonight, and OKC shot 30. So this is, again, OKC is a team that has struggled in the postseason. They're right around the 30% mark from 3, which is one of the lowest percentages in the NBA. And tonight they only shot 36% from 3. They were 39% from the field. They were below 40% shooting. This is something I think if you're a Pacers fan or an OKC fan, I think that's something that we'll be talking about for a lot of this series is can OKC hit shots around SGA? Because he will exploit defenses and he does take a lot of shots. He took a ton of shots tonight, but there were a lot of open threes that they missed. I mean, Lou Dort, had it not been for Lou Dort, this team would have been awful from 3-point line. Like horrible. So again, you're probably going to have a better shooting night from the Thunder, but you're also, I think, going to have a better shooting night from the Pacers, which is crazy to say because they shot 47%. But I felt like they didn't hit good shots at the beginning of the game. And so it's just saying that, I'm like, they could have easily shot 50% from both. That's how good those looks were in the first quarter at times that they just missed. They missed quite a few corner threes early. But yeah, look at this. 98 shots from the Thunder tonight. 82 for the Pacers. But boy, are they efficient when they shoot them. Now, just try not to turn the ball over 24 times. That's how many total turnovers they had tonight. Then you should be pretty good. I think your offense should be fine. But like I said, I mean, you look at the second half, and it was a completely different game. It looked like the Pacers were able to get into an offense. You know, they still have a really good defense, and they were causing some turnovers, some late shot clock shots, and a couple of shot clock violations. But I felt like the Pacers were much better offensively, and they were. So the Pacers in the second half scored 66 points compared to the Oklahoma City Thunder, who scored 53 points. So they outscored the Thunder by 13 points in the second half. They did. I mean, the third quarter really didn't feel like it because OKC kind of kept matching what they did. But then in the fourth quarter, the Pacers just went on their run. I mean, 35 points against a very, very talented defense is very good signs for the Indiana Pacers. The fact that you put up 30 points in quarter 3 and 4 against this defense, that's good. That is very good. So we'll see what happens in game 2 with the offense. But I think the Pacers offense gets better. Like they were awful in the first quarter or first half. So very, very interesting storyline to follow. I mean, you score 45 points in the first half, you score 66 in the second. So it's like two different teams showed up. But you could tell they settled down in the second half. They looked less frazzled and they looked like the hungrier team, which is crazy. But I mean, it really did. They looked like they were the more aggressive. They were the aggressors in the second half. Individual performances, like I said, just pretty good games. Not great from a lot of these guys. Like Andrew Nemhard was great in the fourth quarter, and Neesmith too. But they could all be a lot better. And that's a really good sign for Indiana. And OKC could be a lot better. I mean, they had a lot of guys not shoot the ball well tonight and kind of going down their stats. I'm going to talk about them a little bit just to give them some love. So OKC, Dort had 15 points on 5 3-pointers. He had 4 steals. He was incredible tonight on the defensive end and had a block that I thought was one of the biggest blocks I think I've ever seen in an NBA final game. It was an incredible block, and I thought was going to kill the momentum for the Pacers, but Pacers responded. Jalen Williams, 17 points on 6 of 19 shooting. He was 31% from the field. Chet Holmgren, 2 of 9 from the field at 22%. He had 6 points. Cason Wallace, 6 points, 33% from the field. SGA, 38 points, 14 of 30. He was 46 from the field. Caruso, 3 of 8, 37%. He had 11 points. Isaiah Hartenstein, 9 points on 3 of 5 shooting. Isaiah Joe, 2 of 3 from the field, 5 points, 1 of 1 from 3. And then Aaron Wiggins was 1 of 2 from the field, and he had 3 points. But, I mean, if you look at their free throws, too, I mean, SGA only had 8 free throws. He's usually right around 10. So the Pacers did a good job of not fouling him tonight. I thought the refs were really good tonight. I really did. I thought there were some calls, obviously, that could have gone both ways, and I mean, they let the guys play. I like that. I really like that a lot. This has been easily one of the best officiated postseasons I've seen. Like, just top down. I think letting them play with more physicality and keeping the whistle um, from blowing the whistle. Just, I thought it has. I thought it's been a very fair whistle for the Pacers, Knicks, Pacers, Pacers, Celtics, Pacers, Cavs, Pacers, Oklahoma. Like, it just, I feel like it's gone really well. The officiating 21 free throws from the Pacers, 24 from OKC. Pretty spot on, I feel. So yeah, I feel like the officiating's been good. But again, I mean, you look at the individual performances from OKC, right? And the Pacers weren't good shooting the basketball either. But I mean, Dort was really good tonight. But without Dort, I mean, Jalen Williams, 6 of 19. If you combine SGA and Jalen Williams shots tonight, percentages, they were 20 of 49. It's like right around 40 or under 40%. Yikes. Not good. I mean, J-Dub's going to be better. I think he's going to shoot the ball better in game 2 and going forward in the series. He's a really good player, but he's had some nights. Like, he's had some nights where he's just not been that efficient. 17 points, good points, but I felt like there were some things he did well. He did some things well defensively, but I did feel like anytime he shot the basketball, I was like, oh, well, we got a chance because I don't think that's going in. And Chet, like I said, 2 of 9. That's Miles Turner. Like, that's all Miles Turner. He caused him so many problems. And you can tell it's a physicality thing. It's Miles is so much bigger than Chet is. And not taller, but I mean, like, size wise. He can put his body into Chet and it causes Chet problems. Which is a really great sign for Indiana because they need Holmgren, Williams, and Shea to be that three-headed monster. And I don't think you get another 5 of 9 night from Dort. I don't. Like, he struggled to shoot it, and especially from the 3-point line in the playoffs. I think he's a 30% shooter from the 3-point line in the playoffs this year. So I don't know if you get another 55% game from Dort. Now, the biggest thing, you look at their offensive struggles, and their offense isn't really one that's going to pop off of the stat sheet. SGA will, and you'll get some really good nights from J-Dub, obviously, and they'll combine for 60 to 70 points at times. Chet can really explode at times, but I did feel like Indiana had quite the advantage in the front court. And to be fair, the players that the Pacers have 1 through 7, I think, are better offensive players than everybody behind maybe SGA, and J-Dub is in there somewhere. But after that, I think the Pacers have 6 or 7 guys that are better offensive guys than the rest of the Thunder. So it's a really interesting matchup. That's why I felt like, the defense is going to be really good, and it's going to be something that the Pacers are going to be challenged by throughout this whole series. But there were some things that I'll point out that I was like, it's interesting that I thought they were going to do some other things that they really didn't try. So we'll see, but we'll talk about that. Actually, let's do that now. So let's talk about what I noticed in this game. So obviously, there's a lot of reaching. Like, I do think that there might be a little bit of physicality that's being allowed that, is it a reach or is it not? Like, there's some borderline stuff where I think that's benefited the Thunder, where their defense has been that good because the refs have kind of let you just play on. And so I think they get away with some things. But for the most part, man, like, watching this defense cover ground and just suffocate you at times, it is hard to watch. I mean, it is brutal. Like, if you're a fan of it, cool. Like, if you're a fan of the Thunder, it's fun. But I imagine just playing them, it was just like, oh my gosh, because in the regular season, SGA is shooting like 15 free throws a game. Well, not really, but I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it felt like that at times where he'd shoot 15 or 20, and he just slows the game down, and their defense just muddies things up. So, like, kudos to people that can watch them. I don't know. I don't mean that by any offense, like because the Pacers used to be the exact same way where Frank Vogel, like they only wanted to play defense and keep you under like 80 points. And it's not fun watching if you're not a fan of that team. It's just it's grimy basketball, and they're good at it. They are very good at it. Historic. The things they were doing tonight, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they cover that much ground and don't get lost, and how they strip all those basketballs from people, and the help coverage, and it's fascinating to watch. Like, it is so fascinating. But again, you if you exert yourself that much on the offense, or sorry, on the defensive end, it will impact your offense because your legs get tired. Your body just gets worn out because you're using all of your energy up on the defensive end. So I think there is some good for the defense, obviously. It can be suffocating at times, but I did feel like towards the end of the game, their defense was not as effective against the Pacers. And could that be legs? Could it be the pressure of the moment? I think it's a mixture of both, but it is an interesting because defense, if you've ever played defense before, it is exhausting if you're playing high intensity basketball for 24 seconds in a shot clock all the time. Like, it is exhausting. And that's why they use so many players. But at that point, I think because they don't have like really great offensive players, they got good offensive role players, but not great outside of SGA and J Dub and sometimes Chet. I think that's really due. I mean, you're asking them to do a lot with tired legs. So they're in great shape. They're a really good team. Like I said, would not be shocked if they still win this series and come back and smash the Pacers in. But because they're that good defensively, and there were some things tonight that it was like, oh my gosh, if we can't figure this out, we're in for a long series. There were moments like that, but at the end of the day, the Pacers did. In the second half, they looked like the better team. And it's weird to say that because I think people would look back and go, well, no, the third quarter was not good. No, the third quarter, we beat them in the third quarter. Offense looked better. And then we really took advantage of them in the fourth. But yeah, I mean, the Pacers were the better team in the second half. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about as far as their individual performances and like what I noticed. But another thing too is defensively, I didn't feel like Dort was picking up Tyrese as much as I thought he was going to. Like, he was defending him in the half court, but I thought there would be a lot more face guard to where like Tyrese didn't get the ball at all. But most of the possessions that he wanted the ball, he got it. It just like, and he was good at finding Nemhard or Siakam or a pick and roll quick. Like, Tyrese was quick to get the ball out. And, they weren't running at their hell bent speed, but I didn't think they really took Ty out as much as possible. Like, I actually did feel like the Knicks did better at doing that. Like Mikal Bridges. I don't know. I thought they would go 94 with him, but there were a lot of times that Dort just kind of let Tyrese come up the court and kind of get into an offense. And it really was. The turnovers were more like in the paint area, to be honest with you. Like, that's where you get in trouble because they get handsy. I mean, they get really handsy when you get into the paint. Like, you got guys all over you in the paint. But if you're moving the ball in the perimeter, like, yeah, they're up in your grill, but I didn't feel like there was a lot of moments where they were turning the ball over there. And then they turned the ball over, like, the Pacers would get an offensive rebound, and then they, like, come after you. They, like, blitz you after you get the rebound or defensive rebound, and that's when they take advantage of you. But I never felt like the perimeter players struggled too much with it. So, I don't know. I have to go back and watch the game, but I really did. I felt like most of the turnovers came around the paint area, or once you got inside the 3-point line, that's when they cause you problems. Which is, I mean, those are easy points to get. So it's good that they can stop you in those areas. But I did feel like the Pacers were able to get into a lot of their offense in that second half. Another thing that I did notice, that small lineup, it's going to be interesting. Like, the Pacers have been good at countering that, because I think Obi Toppin and even Pascal is a challenge for that small lineup that OKC likes to go with. And I think you just punish them. Like, they were trying to too. I mean, Tyrese and them were very intentional about getting the ball into the post. You saw a bunch of defenders on OKC trying to front them and then help weak side on the backside, but they weren't getting over quick enough. And there were a lot of times where the Thunder people were fouling Pascal and Obi before they got the basketball in the paint. So I think you've got some good stuff there that you can work with. I think their front court, the Pacers front court could eat them because their front court defenders are not as good as those three perimeter defenders in Dort, Caruso, SGA. Like, those are good perimeter defenders, but I still think there's some laps in there when Case and Wallace is trying to defend a big, or even Dort's trying to find a big. Sometimes Caruso really struggles at times to defend Pascal. Like, there were some fouls on Caruso because Pascal just, he gets to a point where he's too big for him. And Pascal's a little bit more craftier, I think, around the rim than some of the bigs that Caruso, because Jokic just uses his size to just bulldoze you. Pascal's got some like nifty spinning. He's like a Beyblade. I love the guy that calls him the Beyblade. I forget who it is, but it's so accurate. Like, he spins so much and he's so quick and he's got a great shot. He's so lanky, so he's hard to get to. And so I really do. I think there's some advantages for Pascal and Miles and Obi Toppin in this series. Even Thomas Bryant at points, I think, got to the rim pretty effectively because of, and Mathurin too. Like, as much as Chet can be a threat in there, he wasn't really involved much in there because Miles pulls Chet from the rim, which is huge. So I really do. I think the Pacers saw some things as the game went on, as they settled in and they were less herky jerky, and they looked like they were playing too fast in the first half. And that's what Tyrese said. He was very jittery in the first half, and he seemed like he was going at 110 miles per hour when it's good to run, but like, slow down a little bit, because I do think that the half court myth that they're not good in the half court, they're decent in the half court. Like, they are. It's when they get stagnant when they're bad. When they're moving the basketball in the half court, they're hard to stop because you've got so many options to attack. So again, I'm encouraged by the way that Tyrese came on late in the game. I'm really encouraged by Andrew Nemhard and Aaron Nesmith getting confident. Pascal Siakam's he's gonna play like Pascal Siakam. And then Miles Turner. I thought, again, I think there were some shaky moments, but defensively, he put Chet on a poster. I mean, just not dunking on him, but like, put him on the MIA, where were you poster. So that was great. I thought Miles was really good defensively. And, we as Pacer fans understand that, but people look at Miles and go, what did he really offer? Well, Chet was 2 for 9. That was Miles Turner. So, what else? Anything else in this game that No. Okay, so I want to go through and read some things that I told you about that I favorited on X, because this is just, it continues to blow my mind. It continues to impress me just how good this Indiana team has been. And, no matter what happens in this series, it just, the way they've played, they deserve this. They deserve to be here. They deserve this attention. And if they win a championship, they have deserved to win a championship. So, yeah, looking at it. Sorry, I was looking at trying to find my things that I was favoriting. I was favoring all sorts of different things because I wanted to look at them later on. But this is the first NBA Final Series lead the Pacers ever had at 0.3 seconds. They were down 15. They went 6 of 10 from the 3-point line in the fourth quarter. They shot 60%. The Pacers had a 1 in 75 million chance of winning all 4 of those absurd comebacks that they've had in the postseason. So in game 1, they had a 3% chance of winning at their lowest percentage in game 1 against OKC. Lowest percentage against the Knicks, 0.3% in game 1. In game 2 against the Cavs, it was 2.1% to win that game, where Ty hits that step back. And then against the Bucks in game 5, it was 0.7. So all below 3% below. And a 1 in 75 million chance to win those games is absolutely insane. Indiana just tied the largest fourth quarter comeback win in finals in the NBA Finals in the last 50 years. What else? I'm just kind of going through my favorites. It's just a lot of people making comments about Shai Gilgeous was quoted saying, "It is a 48-minute game, and the Pacers teach you that lesson more than anybody else in our league, and they do it the hard way. That's how you learn it." Yes. Most go-ahead or game-tying field goals in the final 5 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime since 1997 playoffs. LeBron James has 8 of those shots. Reggie Miller has 5, and Tyrese has 5. So Tyrese is tied with Reggie, and he'll pass LeBron, I'm assuming. Like, knock on wood, Tyrese is only 3 away from LeBron. So unless LeBron keeps playing until he's like 80. Indiana has come back down from down 15 more or more 5 times in the single postseason, which is the most in any single postseason era, or sorry, any play-by-play era since 1997. Pacers are 5-3 when they go down by 15 or more in the playoffs. Just unbelievable. Oklahoma City just lost to, this is Pat Boylan. Oklahoma City just lost to an East team at home for the first time since March 12th of 2024, nearly 15 months ago, when they lost to the Indiana Pacers. So the Pacers were the last team to beat them, huh? On their own. That's wild. That's crazy. Huh. Wow. Just incredible. Tyrese Halliburton is 6 of 7 when taking a shot to tie or take the lead in the final 90 seconds or fourth quarter or overtime this playoffs. 85% from the field in the final 90 seconds of fourth or overtime in this playoffs. And then this one was before the game. Evan Sidery, who I believe, I want to get this right. Oh, he's with Forbes. He's an NBA contributor with Forbes. So Evan tweeted before the game, right, that the Pacers, I just lost it. Hold on. I just closed out the wrong tab. But Oklahoma City was 1-4 in these playoffs when they've allowed a team to score more than 110. They're now 1-5 because the Pacers scored 111 points tonight. But the other fun part of that stat is that the Pacers have now gone 13-0 when they score 110 points in the postseason this year. That's crazy. So when the Pacers score over 110, they've not been beaten yet in the playoffs. And when the Thunder give up 110, they're 1-5. Yeah. I mean, it really does. It speaks to the incredible effort that this team gives for 48 minutes. They never give up. They never quit. It's never die, right? It's always do. And as we continue to watch this NBA Finals series, I think it's going to be a very exciting series. I think that the Thunder are going to be right there till the end. And if they don't win it, then I think it will be a big shock because of how good they've been all season, right? They've won over 80 games, regular season, postseason combined. This is an incredible team. This is a historic team, and the Pacers are doing exactly what they want to do. They're now up 1-0 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They play game 2 on Sunday night, June 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. So it is at 8 p.m., not 8:30. So make sure to set your watch, because the Pacers play at 8 instead of 8:30 on Sunday. And that'll be game 2 in Oklahoma City. Pacers lead 1-0. And if you go up 2-0, like I said, a team has never come back from a 2-0 deficit when they've lost the first 2 games at home. So the Pacers will try to get greedy, and I really do hope they try to get greedy and win game 2. I think they've got a lot of recipe for success, but I also feel like they have a ton to work on, which is always, I think, a pretty good sign, because usually when you win games in the postseason, there's not too many adjustments, but the Pacers really weren't that great tonight, especially in the first half, and they did some things better in the second half, obviously. And I think they can carry over that momentum, but they're going to have a lot of adjustments that they'll go over. And you've got 2 days in between instead of just the 1 day now. So you'll get some rest. You'll get your players the rest that they need. You'll get the bodies healthier. And I think those adjustments that they can take from that first half where they were awful, they can go back and look at, all right, where did things go wrong? And a lot of it's just that swarming defense, not dribbling into trouble, not allowing them to get two guys in on defense to help out, right? Trying to stay one on one, swinging the basketball, get them rotating, get them moving as much as possible, and just wear them down. Find the mismatches because there are some, and really just try to move the ball as much as you can. Get Tyrese free. I think there's some things that they can do to get Tyrese even more involved in the offense than they're currently doing. But overall, I mean, to get game one like they did, I think it's huge. And, you know, what went well in this game was the fourth quarter. I mean, the second half was good, but the fourth quarter was great. And I think you try to replicate it as much as possible. Tonight, I thought their defense was really good. I mean, this is a Pacers defense, guys, that was one of the worst in the league last year. And they are now a very good defense. I'm not just saying that. Like they are very good defensively. And a lot of that is anchored by Andrew Nemhard, Aaron Nesmith, Siakam, Miles Turner being great at the rim, protecting the rim, being a good defender, and Tyrese Halliburton being a good defender. Tonight, he was exposed a little bit more, and I think OKC is going to be able to do that because they got bigger bodies to kind of throw at Tyrese, and that's typically the kind of offensive prototype that Tyrese struggles with is a stronger, more compact guard and somebody that can go up against his size. But there were some things tonight where Tyrese was contesting shots where I thought he made a difference. So he's not going to be perfect. He's going to be the hole that people go after. He's going to be targeted. They targeted him so many times tonight with Shea. But I thought he did really well at the end of games. I thought he did really nice job of hedging those screens, getting those defenders through those screens. He's good enough because he's got length where he can force you to go further out from your screen and somebody can recover like an Andrew Nemhard because he's so quick. All Tyrese has to do is just get his length out to the guard, and it can nullify that pick and roll that they try to do with guard on guard. So I thought Tyrese did some really things that we didn't really see defensively that unless you go back and watch the film, but I thought he hedged some screens where I felt like he kept SGA from trying to get off towards the paint, and Nemhard was able to recover pretty quickly. So again, they've been so much better defensively this year. I mean, they're actually fun to watch on the defensive end, and they caused some turnovers. Like they've caused OKC some turnovers, and the Pacers are getting out and running when they can do that, and they didn't get a ton of fast break points, and that's usually not great for the Pacer team that likes to get out and run, and that's something that they rely on in their offense to get those breakaways. But if you look at it, fast break points, 10 points for the Pacers, 11 for OKC. Again, those were a lot of just the turnovers. But like I said, the points off turnovers, I think they said that OKC, obviously they forced, how many turnovers was it again? It was 24 turnovers by the Pacers, and points off turnovers, I think they said OKC only had 12, which is insane that you only got 12 points off of the 24 turnovers that you forced on Indiana. But again, second chance points, Indiana wins that battle. Points in the paint, OKC has the advantage there, but a lot of that's SGA, 46-34. But like I said, they caused problems for their other guys shooting the basketball. OKC 39% from the field, 36% from the three-point line. They won't win games shooting that percentage, not against the Pacers. Like I just feel like the Pacers offense, especially when the Pacers go home, I feel like the Thunder cannot afford to have games like that when they play at home. Like you can't shoot that percentage and expect to win many games. And their defense really kept them in it. And the Pacers brutal turnover, whatever they had in the first quarter or first half. That's why they stayed in this game, because I really did feel like the Pacers did a lot of things right or a lot of things wrong, things that they can fix. And where OKC, I felt like did some good things defensively, like really gave them a chance to win. Like when you turn a team over 24 times, you should win that game by a lot. And tonight they lose. So I think it's a huge silver lining thing for the Pacers. You can't get too high on this, but you can also take the fact that you played a really bad game. I think most players will say they didn't play very well, and you still won this game in OKC, the toughest place to play in the NBA Finals. So again, I think you got some positives coming out of this, but like I said, just an extraordinary win. We are excited here. I know it's past 1 o'clock at this point. I'm getting tired, so I'm gonna have to cut it loose. But this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this game. I was going crazy, jumping up and down, screaming. But we have another game to get ready for on Sunday. Again, that's on Sunday, June 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern time on ABC. And that will be game 2 of the NBA Finals. Pacers looking to go up 2-0. We will have a preview of that game coming out probably on Friday at some point, Friday or Sunday, or sorry, Saturday. I don't know what days follow each other at this point in the morning, but I'm going to record something probably Friday evening and then try to get that out on Friday. So you have time to listen to it Friday night and Saturday and Sunday leading up to the game. So really appreciate the support so far. Again, we're over on YouTube at the Pacers Fever Show. Anywhere you can find podcasts at the Pacers Fever Show, socials at the Pacers Fever Show. And I'm going to sign off for the night. But a huge win tonight in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Pacers, for the first time in their franchise history, have a lead in the NBA Finals, and they will head on into Game 2, looking to take Game 2 and a 2-0 lead back to Indianapolis in this best-of-7 series against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the 2025 NBA Finals.